All right, we are live. Dynasty Evaluation Show. Look at the background here. Got some these kilns, these brewery, all this brew stuff. JT's home court here. Where are we at, JT?
JT Walker's Brewery. This is my brewery here in Mahomet, Illinois. So yeah, got our brew house behind us and our fermenters. So pretty cool. First time we're ever trying to do a live show here. So hopefully it works out for everybody.
They're fermenters, so that's what they call it. Well, we're going to ferment this show, so let's get going. All right, so today's show, we're going to talk about, we'll call it how the depth charts have fallen. What we're going to do is we're going to go through all 32 teams, just go through the relevant players that were drafted, and we'll go anybody who's drafted around 1 to 7 anyway on the offensive side of the ball. And, you know, we threw in a couple undrafted free agents in there that we feel are important to the draft depth charts of all NFL teams. But we'll switch back and forth. We got some special guests on today. I'm John McGlynn75. You can find me on X at John McGlynn75. And the Dynasty Evaluation YouTube channel, along here with the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel. And we are home with JT. Where can you find all your work at, JT?
At JT Orange. You can find me on the Stew with JT Brew when I'm not on the show here with you on that. Also tonight, the Shoot the Gap. I'll be on there. We'll be doing a rookie mock draft, IDP and offensive players combined. So check that out later tonight, 10 Eastern time. That show will be on. And then you always check out my IDP stuff and articles and rankings on DLF.
And we have a guest also. An in-person show. 3 people here, Mo, Larry, and Curly. Who's number 3?
So my name is Dan Thury. I am a part of the Beerfield Fantasy Football podcast. We're just called Beerfield Podcast. At this point, you can find me at Beerfield Thury on X, Beerfield Fantasy on X for the show. We generally go live Thursday nights at around 8 p.m. Central. Kind of give you guys the same runaround as we will get to from here. Yeah, it's one show all I do. That's all I got time for.
That's all we need. One show is fair. I do one show a week too. I'll be on the second one tonight with the IDP stuff with JT, which should be fun. I'm gonna pop my my cherry here. Here we go.
IDP stuff.
Get me going on the IDP stuff. Yes.
It's a good little warm up for you. You know, we got some drafts coming up, so this will be a nice little mock for you.
Yeah, buddy. So what we're gonna do is I assigned to everybody. Dan's got the odds and JT's got the evens here. So we'll start with the Bears here. Dan, we'll start with you. The Bears drafted Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze this year. Now, for quarterback-wise, they don't have a quarterback. There's no controversy anymore for quarterback. It's Caleb Williams, so that's pretty much a set. But for the wide receivers, you got Rome Odunze. He walks in with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet playing tight end. As far as running backs, with DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson, Khalil Herbert, you know, tell me about this offense now with Rome Odunze catching passes from Caleb Williams.
It's going to really create just a more dynamic offense, something that Chicago really hasn't had to watch. Chicago fans really haven't had to watch since the days of Jay Cutler, you know, with Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey, you know, Matt Forte during the Mark Trestman era. So this is going to bring a lot of excitement to Bears fans. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit, I think, before Rome kind of takes the reins. I personally think he's going to step into number 2 role. I think Keenan at 32 years old, put it on the slot. Also very new to the offense himself. Obviously, you know, with him coming over in a trade from the Chargers, it's going to bring just a different dynamic, and Rome can do literally everything. He is another type of DJ Moore that can win all 3 levels of the field, and it just brings an attitude. And it's going to be a show. It might be a little slower, maybe not the first week, but I think within the first 2 to 3 weeks, you can see you know, leading the routes run, leading the snaps for a guy like Keenan, and really competing with Moore as a 1A, 1B type situation.
Yeah, I heard that Rome may be the number 1 towards the end of this year because him and Caleb are going to be together the next 5 years. They're going to be used to each other. They're going to have to get to know each other fast. DJ Moore has been, you know, rumored to not be happy that all these people are around now. He thought he was going to be the man in town, but you know, Rome and Caleb are going to have you know, they're going to get going from the start. We know that much. We'll see how that pans out. But JT will give you the Bengals now. So what the Bengals drafted, Jermaine Burton and Eric All at tight end. So they already have Mike Gesicki. I'm really not sure why they need to bring in another tight end here. You know, it's Mike Gesicki's the best thing in town. So, you know, but anyway, Jermaine Burton walks into Tyler Boyd's no longer here. Tell me about this Bengals offense now with Jermaine Burton.
Yeah, Burton is the guy that's kind of going up draft boards. All the talent in the world. Played at Georgia, played at Alabama. Had some off the field issues and some attitude issues from some coaches. That kind of made him fall into the third. But if you go back and look at like what a lot of people talked about, I mean, they were saying, hey, he's got first round talent. So if they can get him in the third round here and he ends up busting out for them, I think this could be a huge steal. I think Case T. Higgins ends up moving on. I mean, obviously, he's on the franchise tag. He's asked to be traded. We'll see if that happens. Right now, most people are kind of thinking Burton's going to slide in as that third receiver for them with Tyler Boyd gone. There are some other guys there still. Charlie Jones from last year. Andre Isalvas, who I always jack his name up 100 times ever. Yeah. I always mess his name up. And Trent Irwin, kind of, guy's been there forever. They've got them in the mix too. I think, pure talent-wise, Burton probably wins out here. But if Higgins gets moved, Burton flies up draft boards because all of a sudden you think he's the number 2 behind Jamar Chase. So he's a guy you definitely want to keep an eye on. And Aaron Ball out of Iowa, super talented tight end, went to Michigan and transferred to Iowa. Just banged up his entire college career. Guy's got crazy athleticism, good build, good height. It's the factor, can he just stay healthy? He's a 4th rounder. If he was healthy, he was probably a 2nd rounder. People are really liking him. I've been stealing him in like 4th or 5th rounds of rookie drafts so far. Because, again, in front of him is Mike Gesicki and Drew Sample. So he can easily play with those guys. I think he is a little bit better of a blocker, but I think he's kind of a Mike Gesicki type if he's healthy. But he's pretty athletic as well. So I could definitely see him making a role. Even if Gesicki plays there, there's a chance that they move Gesicki out without Tyler Boyd and play him in a little bit of slot role because everybody knows he's not a blocker. I mean, Gesicki's just not a guy you want inside blocking. So if they move him out, I could see all getting in there and getting actually some playing time. So it might be a while before he gets in there, but he's a guy I'm definitely stashing, especially if I have a taxi squad where I got room where I can sit on him at least for a year and see if he hits. He's definitely a guy that I want to take a chance on. If he ends up never making it, never being anything, I have to drop him in a year or two. To me, taking a 5th round flyer on him is not a big deal for the upside. Yeah,
and your boy Zach Moss and Chase Brown are there now. No more Joe Mixon, so it'll be a handful more receptions to be had for these, possibly for the tight end or the slot receiver. So we'll see what happens. Big moves are on the way. So next, Bills, Keon Coleman, Ray Davis, Frank Gore Jr. Dan, what's going on here with the Bills depth chart?
Well, you got to love the landing spot for Coleman. Obviously, up and down combine, pretty uninspired, just given what we got from the rest of the receivers there. Posting some not so desirable numbers. Then the gauntlet drill comes. Obviously, Zach considered the best in that drill, which probably helped him get propelled to being a top 2nd round draft pick. Stephon Diggs is out. A lot of those targets are gone. Not to say that vacant targets matter completely, but there's a wide open game. There's a wide open room there now, especially also Gabe Davis going to Jacksonville. They bring in Curtis Samuel, turn him in guy. Khalil Shakir is a 5th round pick. They like him, slot guy, nothing really much more than that. The offense kind of took a teetered spot towards the end of last year when they got rid of Ken Dorsey. I can't remember the new OC they brought in, but they went a little more balanced. The passing game took a step backwards. Obviously, Diggs is struggled in that aspect, but they bring in Coleman, 6'1", 213, bigger body guy. Lower it out with FSU, allowing him to kind of maybe bring in that type of physicality that you've now lost. But I don't think he's the greatest route runner in the world. Not the best after the catch, but someone that can absorb contact and absorb targets in an offense that's going to need to have that opportunity. And whether you love Coleman or not as a prospect, landing in Buffalo with Josh Allen, the shootouts that can ensue in the AFC East with the Dolphins and the Jets with the healthy Rodgers will bring on fantasy upside in both redraft and dynasty. And as for the running backs, Ray Davis takes the number 2 spot, higher draft pick. Frank Gore was the UDFA. Both are similar built and size. Both are similar production in college. One has the dad namesake, which I think is why. But Davis, maybe older, should come in. A lot of years under the belt with him with Kentucky. I think there's opportunity for him as the grinder back, the goal line back, It's tough to take going, shots from Josh Allen, but Josh Allen is going into the new contract, right? The extension is up, kicked in. Buffalo wants to protect Allen, not take dumb hits,
Right.
not have him become a Cam Newton where he takes too many shots and gets hurt. Even though he's got the size, you want to, prevent that from happening. Davis can come in and absorb that. Frank Gore is also built very similarly to Ray Davis, both 5'8", that 2-ish, 210 range, while James Cook 5'9", 199. Like, there's some little thunder and lightning here potentially. So Davis not running off the board. He may be old. I know us guys don't love to have old running backs in Dynasty. But in terms of redraft, Ray Davis, my favorite term, one injury away from being very, very relative and a very prolific offense.
I made about 17 trade offers on the way here this afternoon for Dalton Kincaid because he may be the number one receiver on this offense.
Yeah, man.
You can't.
Dawson
Knox. Yeah, Dawson Knox. I'm not sure Keon Coleman may not be the savior for the franchise here. I mean, you got Curtis.
I got my concerns.
I have my concerns too.
I got my concerns.
So I'm going for Kincaid everywhere just because I want that, especially in tight end premium leagues. I want the tight end who's going to catch all these passes. So, we'll see how that works.
Curtis Samuel is going to be the interesting one.
Yes.
He fit in there. Joe Brady is who took over.
Thank you, Joe Brady. Thank you.
So, yeah, I think Curtis Samuel is a really interesting guy there. And I tell you what, the guy I've been taking super late in startups, or like if he's on the waiver wire and you're doing a rookie draft that you can take veterans on it, Dawson Knox. Like, he's not going to see a ton of targets, but I think they're going to play a lot
red
of
zone threat.
And he's a red zone threat. So he's a guy that I've been stashing when people don't want him. Because, everybody's thinking Dalton Kincaid, which I'm thinking them too. I'd rather have Dalton Kincaid. But if you need somebody in a tight end, especially if you're a start 2 tight end, and you get desperate in the season, he's a guy that can get you some points. So I've been stashing him. Yeah, I've been stashing him a little bit.
My offers, they weren't anything good, so it was, I sent out some offers. I'll just leave it at that. So.
And I love Ray Davis and Gore. I actually think they could be the 2-3 in this lineup behind Cook. And I just love Ray Davis. I've been getting him in the mid to late third, early fourth round in most drafts. Again, he's an older guy. I only need 2 or 3 years out of him, but I just think he does a lot of things that James Cook doesn't necessarily do. So I could see him definitely working in there. I can see a 60-40 split, Cook 60, Ray Davis getting 40, and Ray Davis getting more of the goal line stuff. And I also like Ray Davis on third downs. Even though Cook catches the ball well, so does Ray Davis. So I think it's an intriguing backfield for me in Buffalo.
You don't really want, with Cook's frame, you don't really want him absorbing 20-plus touches a game.
Right.
Like, could he do it for a season? Sure. We've seen guys like Shane Vereen, very similar size, able to handle a full season workload. After that, when he's supposed to be the guy in that backfield for multiple years, you want to kind of protect and absorb those hits, bring in a little bit of a bruiser back.
Yes, sir.
Guy that you can wear down.
JT moved to Broncos now. Bo Nix, Troy Franklin, Notre Dame boy, Audric Estime. What happened with these Broncos this year? They fooled the whole league in Bo Nix later in the draft or later in the first round. What happened?
I have to be honest here. I did not see Bo Nix as a first-round QB. I know teams were getting nervous and moving up. I was shocked when he went 12. He's a guy I'm avoiding in like every one of my drafts. I know he's going to start, and if you absolutely are desperate for a starting quarterback, I can see taking him. I'm just not so sold on the situation. I think this Broncos team could be pretty bad. I'm just not sold on them at all. I know people loved Troy Franklin. Obviously, he was a guy that a lot of people pre-draft had going first round.
Yeah.
And then kind of slipped to the second round. People weren't super excited about the combine, the numbers there. But if you're going to get a landing spot and you like Troy Franklin before, even though it goes in the fourth round, you got to feel good about him getting his college QB going there too, and the fact that they're moving guys out. They've already traded Jerry Jeudy. There's a question whether Courtland Sutton's going to be gone by the end of the year. So there's a good chance the starting lineup could be Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, and possibly Josh Reynolds, who they signed. Tim Patrick is still there, coming out of his 875th injury. So it'd be great for him to play a year, but I mean, a guy that has basically not played in 3 or 4 seasons, it'd be tough to see if he really can work out any kind of role there, which sucks because I really like him as a player. And then Dolchich, a tight end.
Yeah.
Those guys, he's been banged up and hurt. This team is going to need to play some really good defense this year, I think, to be in games because this team makes me real nervous.
I think fantasy-wise, first of all, That's one question, but the running back game, Javonte Williams was a lot of people very high on Javonte. He's going to be healthy now. He's going to catch passes out of the backfield, and then bam, Audric Estime shows up. What's going on with that?
Yeah, they seem to like Estime. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how they work that out. I mean, Sanjay Perrine's still there. They still like him, even though I think he's a very okay back. But he's still kind of in the mix there too. If I have Javonte Williams, I'm definitely taking Estime in my rookie draft because I'm just in case something happens, I want to have him. Estime, I'm a little lower than other people in rankings wise. I'm not taking him really unless he falls to me to like the late third or early fourth, and that's if I'm not getting Ray Davis. For some reason, then I'll go him. But he's a guy so far. I don't have any Knicks or any Estime in any of my rookie drafts. I've gotten Franklin in 2 where he kind of fell, and I got him. I was like right on the verge there, and I was looking at like Xavier Legette, Roman Wilson, and those guys went right in front of him, and so I ended up getting Franklin like late second, early third. So I have been taking him in some spots, but I am very nervous fantasy-wise for this Broncos offense.
Very nervous for all the players. I passed up some really good opportunities to get rid of Javonte, and I wish I would have kind of took. I mean, like I'm talking late first-round picks. And it just feels like it's going to be a 50-50 split now with this.
It was the third in the backfield at the end of last year with him.
Yes.
With Pirine, you had the other smaller third down back who was getting a lot of receiving work. The thing about Estime too.
McLaughlin.
Yeah. Estime doesn't catch passes. No season over 20 catches. It's not a part of his profile.
He's a Notre Dame boy, man.
That's true. I know Kyron Williams. At least Kyron Williams caught passes when he was there. That's like it's going to be a bad offense. It's going to be a low-scoring offense. Why would anyone want to target a running back who doesn't catch passes in a shared backfield that just won't score touchdowns, right? If you can't catch passes, then I need you to be on the field in goal-to-goal situations, getting those cleanup touchdowns, and that just not going to happen.
That's why he's a handcuff for me if I got Javonte Williams, but I'm not taking him.
I mean, there's still Pirine. He's a third down back. You know, with him during his Oklahoma days with Joe Mixon, didn't catch passes, but the Bengals saw something in him as a third down back, and that's translated at least to where he is now, where like I get Estime's hype. It's not the back. That's not the back I target. That's not the kind of back that I want to target.
I definitely wouldn't work on the Broncos scouting staff because I didn't like Knicks. I didn't like Estime. I didn't like Franklin. All the guys they took, I was like, I'm kind of out on all these guys.
At least they got Franklin at a steal.
So that's what I'm saying.
That's only
at least the thing for them. I'm like,
they spend up on Knicks. You know, Sean Payton, we made the Vikings, pretend that they traded up. No, you got pissed off because you didn't get, they didn't get Michael Penix.
Yeah.
And you had to be settled with Bo Nix, which, I'll be honest, none of them were first-round pick. They should not have been. I agree with you. Nix should have been an
And I think there's a chance that Nix is, like, efficient in that Payton offense, but I just wouldn't expect much. There's a chance he completes a lot of passes. And he does something, but the fact that is he going to move the team down the field? Like I say, is he going to move the team down the field? Or are they going to score a lot? No,
he's not going to get Detroit Franklin 75 yards just because Franklin's there. Hey, he's not going to start. I think he might, but he's going to build chemistry with other receivers there. Like there is, it's nice to have that built in right away. But if Zach Wilson starts, let's say, maybe Nix and him can work together. Then you might get that, but.
I'd rather take Zach Wilson.
I jokingly said that Zach Wilson's better than Bo Nix. I'm not saying.
They're both 24. Zach Wilson's
that's crazy.
In a couple of years.
Yeah, that's how that Bo Nix got a walker.
They're actually the same age. So I actually like Wilson just for the cost. Instead of spending a first round or early second on Nix, you can get Wilson either for free or just. Pretty much
he'll be dropped.
Most people drop him. So I've been taking him in leagues where I'm like super shallow at QB where I just need a couple backups just in case. I like that option as well.
That's enough Broncos talk. We got a lot of talk.
That's a lot of Broncos talk.
Move on.
Sorry, guys.
I walked around the NFL draft with a microphone and I was asking people questions about their team. And I walked up to one of the Browns fans and I said, "How'd your first round draft pick go?" And he said, F you,
He's like, no, we didn't have
the Browns did in the fifth round draft Jamari Thrash. So, Dan, where does Jamari Thrash fit in this offense here? Because they got a Cooper who's underrated value for many years now. Jerry Jeudy was brought aboard. Elijah Moore, who's one of my favorite receivers. I think he's got to be caged. At some point in time, he's going to get back on the horse. But Jamari Thrash falls right in, around those in that situation. Where does he fall on his depth chart? They get rid of somebody. What, just back up here?
Yeah, so they got Cooper. They traded for Judy. They have Elijah Moore. That's your starting three.
Yeah.
You're gonna put Judy in the slot. Moore and Judy can kind of fight to play inside outside there, which is a great combination. I'm also a huge Elijah Moore fan.
Yeah.
You have Cedric Tillman, drafted there last year out of Tennessee. Deeper boundary guy. He's kind of the Donovan Peoples-Jones replacement, but he's also there. He has his spot, his role. You got David Bell. You guys remember David Bell?
Yeah, I traded up and 2 years.
I love David Bell. David Bell's also still there. Both of these guys are third-round picks. They decided to actually not spend another third-round pick on a wasted receiver. Thrash, 5'11", 186. Not the most athletic for size, especially in a class where everyone besides Kean Coleman was actually athletic. I think he's practice squad. I don't know what his role was with special teams. That may be where he fits. But in terms of meaningful production, good luck.
Yeah,
he
right.
is if you like him, you're going to get him at the end of your rookie drafts. You can probably pick him up in some smaller dynasty leagues, super flex leagues where the value is pushed down. But we don't know what the Browns' offense is going to look like. Watson didn't look particularly great last year at times. He was good for fantasy because he still provides the rushing upside, but the offense wasn't great at times. It wants to be run first. You're going to get Nick Chubb back. Kept Jerome Ford. They like the running game. That's what Kevin wants to run there. And if you have to work to get to the starting spot on a lower volume offense, that's not a guy.
Right.
I really care about.
No, I get it 100%. So, JT, we move to you with the Buccaneers. Bucky Irving, Jalen McMillan, who I kind of am aiming towards.
Number 2 Washington receiver. Sorry, Volk.
And Devin Culp, all were drafted by the Buccaneers. So where do these guys fit on this offense? Because, man, I've been holding on to Trey Palmer for a while now, since last year, to avoid a lot of trade offers, figured he'd be the guy, and then bam, all of a sudden, Jalen McMillan shows up.
It's going to be really interesting because people are talking whether McMillan plays over Palmer or whether Palmer gets that spot. I almost feel like they're drafting McMillan in case eventually they move on from Godwin or something goes there, because he feels more like a Godwin guy. Palmer's much more of a speed guy, down the field guy, where McMillan is pretty much he is a Chris Godwin type player. So I think they, where he's going to fit early on, I'm not sure. It depends on kind of what they want to do on the offense there. But he feels more like a Godwin player than a Palmer player. But, with you guys still got Mike Evans, running that X going down the field. So I think you can get McMillan in there. He's a guy I'm willing to take a shot on. And, I don't have a lot of them just because there's a couple other wideouts I like in that range. But he's a guy, you can look at probably early third round if you want to get him. The one that kills me is Bucky Irving. And not that I don't like Bucky at all, but he feels like a very similar player to Rachaad White. So I feel like you drafted the same guy. But smaller. And then you also killed all my Sean Tucker shares. Yeah. And now the fact that they went out and got him, I know. It's like now I was like, okay, I'd hope, give him a year. Sean Tucker's going to work in this year. They're going to play him a lot more. And then they go draft Bucky Irving, and I'm like, is this the death of Sean Tucker?
Are we really afraid of Bucky Irving to take Sean? They play different roles.
I don't think they're the same type of player. I don't think they're the same type of player. So I'm hoping that Sean Tucker's still in the mix there. Rachaad White, I'm not in love with Rachaad White, even though scored huge fantasy points, but he was analytics-wise, was one of the worst running backs in the league as far as making tackles. Yeah, he's very inefficient. Yes, he was very inefficient. So I would still like him there. If I'm a Rachaad White owner, I'm a little worried about the Bucky Irving because, but I don't think that Bucky is as good as Rachaad White is at the things that Rachaad White does. So I think that kind of hurts Bucky too, because again, you think of, he's more of a third down back. Well, he got a lot of screens. He doesn't have real great hands, even though he had a lot of catches in college. He wasn't a guy that was running a lot of routes.
So he's Max Gordon.
Yeah. They were dropping it off to him, and he was replaced. So why I like Bucky, I am not drafting Bucky anywhere because I just don't see where he fits for this team. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they went that route with him here.
Feels like insurance.
That's what it is. It feels like a backup handcuff.
It was a day 3 pick, right? Bucky
Yeah.
was a day 3 like
Fourth rounder. Yep.
Look, I think there's a spot from if something happens to White, you have then Sean Tucker to fill in the White running role, and then you have Bucky to fill in the pass catching White role. That's where taking a late flyer on Bucky could make sense. White, pretty healthy guy, been healthy, during his time with Tampa, but offense lost a lot of coaching pieces that maybe help move that offense along. But it's a lot of the same pieces, right? They brought back Baker. You obviously still have, Godwin and Evans, Palmer or McMillan. I do agree with you. I think McMillan's more of the Godwin guy. McMillan is more of a slot guy. His last year with Washington after he came back from his injury. So I agree with you there. I'm not afraid of Bucky Irving unless White gets hurt and he looks better as a catcher.
Are we getting ready for a change of the guard across the board next year with Godwin?
I thought it was going to happen this year.
I think the fact that I think we would have seen it this year if they wouldn't have made the playoffs. Baker wouldn't have played as well as he did. The fact that they made the playoffs, then they won a game. I think just they had to go look at it and be like, well, it was almost like the Daniel Jones.
They were drafting too low.
It was the Daniel Jones thing. It was like, hey, we made the playoffs and we were like in the mix. Like, how do we just let all these guys go?
Yeah.
And I think they're like, hey, let's give it one more run. But if Tampa falls apart this year, I could see wholesale changes.
The NFC South is a very winnable division. I think Bucs should be favored again.
And I think that's why they stayed with it one more year. They're like, hey, we're in a real winnable division.
Back.
I mean, and if you look at the QB play in that division, I mean, let's be honest, Baker's been the best quarterback in that division. So it's pretty crazy to say, but he is the best quarterback right now in that division.
All the years.
Other than, the new signing of Kirk Cousins, depending on what happens with Kirk coming back off the injury.
Sorry, Atlanta fans.
Sorry, Atlanta fans is right. Dan, you get the Cardinals here. We're already in pretty good shape. We get Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey Benson, Tip Raymond, Tajon Palmer. So where does the Cardinals? This was a fantastic home run draft here, as far as I'm concerned. What happened with the Arizona Cardinals?
I think MA3 just really solidified himself as the first receiver taken. Great landing spot, wide open depth chart for him to really command what he'll command. Not really afraid of Michael Wilson, even though I like Wilson. I think he's more of a good complement 3. Yeah. And then obviously, McBride. I think those two can really play off of each other, and I think they work well with what they both will do on the field together. Trey Benson. I love Benson. My dude.
Was he your number one in this draft?
He was. I've always said pre-draft with the running backs, they're all tiered the same, right? You have Benson, you have Brooks, you have Corum. I wasn't that high on Braylon Allen, but you could put Braylon Allen in there. Those are always kind of like, who is the other? There's one more guy I'm blanking on here, but
all those guys are kind of those guys.
They're all
Marshawn Lloyd.
Marshawn Lloyd, they're all in right from Tennessee. They're all kind of clumped together. So landing spot, draft capital, we're always in mind. Brooks, great landing spot too with the Panthers. We'll get to them later. Benson, I thought this was a prime spot. Prime. Benson never had more than 160 carries in college. He's not a workhorse. He may be built to be one, so he might be one. But if you don't lead a season in carries, like if you don't get workhorse carries in college in a season, you probably won't get it in the NFL. Historically, that's what the trend is. Now he gets to play behind James Conner, who has never played a full 17 season before, on an up-and-coming offense with Kyler Murray, with that receiving game, spread offense. It's going to like he has his issues. He's not great with vision, but explosive, great in space. Good enough hands. Not going to be a guy that's going to work in the passing game, but he can hurt you if you keep leaving him in the flat. Love that spot for him. Big fan, and he's going to be cheaper than Brooks. Everyone sees Brooks in Carolina, and they love that spot. So it's going to push Benson down to easily into the second round in super flex leagues. And in a redraft, I think he is a true one injury away guy. He's a true if Connor is to miss time and Benson's the guy behind him, you have an RB1 upside every week. That offense, that scoring potential, and his big playability, home run hitter, like that's all you want. That's all you want.
Yeah, I'm 100% agreement. He's been my won the whole time. I was hoping for a good landing spot and draft capital. He got both. Picked at the beginning of the third round, went to Arizona, which I love what they're doing on offense. I'm with you. I think him being a year behind Connor helps him. He's going to learn from James Conner. He's going to learn how to work, but he's going to get work in there. They've seen Connor hasn't made it ever. So they're like, hey, they would love to take some touches away from him, give it to Benson. I actually think Benson is underrated as a pass catcher. I think he's got better hands than people give him credit for. And I think, like you said, his worst trait is he doesn't have the greatest vision. I think in this open offense, it's going to give him a chance to get lanes. And he showed you at the combine, 4.39 speed. The guy's got wheels. And he showed you in college, if he can get to that second level, he can go. Yeah. And so I think this is a really, really good spot for him. So I absolutely love it. Marvin Harrison Jr., not much to say. He's my number one everything. I love Marvin. I'm taking him over QBs and Superflex leagues. People think I'm crazy. I just love the upside forever. I love him being the number one on this team with Kyler back. I love it. And then Tip Raymond, he's blocking not a fantasy. He's a blocking guy.
That's it.
He's going to help. What he's going to do is I think he's going to help McBride's, actually, because I think this is going to free McBride up to block and go out, where Tip will stay in a little bit more in some 2 tight end sets. So I actually like this move as far as the draft. Tip's going to be a guy, I feel like he's a max, like 25 catches, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns a season. He's going to get some stuff. I don't think he's got terrible hands. He didn't have much chance in college because Illinois just didn't throw their tight ends much, and he kind of was a late bloomer. Yeah, but McBride, but I think it helps McBride. But I love Benson, love Marvin Harrison. I am buying this Arizona offense.
So if we're doing if we're doing rookie drafts today, we're doing super flex, and obviously we know that MGH or the MH3 is the 101. Let's see what he's over what quarterback. So he's not over Caleb, right? You're not taking Caleb.
I have taken him over Caleb.
Okay.
It is definitely team dependent. I have some teams that I have pretty good quarterbacks, but I'm super weak at wide receiver. Those teams I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. without question, because I think he just fills a bigger need on my team, and I think he'll hit right away. Plus, I think I just love his long term. So I will say that. Now, if I'm in a league where I definitely need QB, I'm not skipping QB for him unless I'm looking at my team going, I'm 2 or 3 years away, and I'm probably going to need to get quarterback next year or the year after because I'm still pretty bad. Then I might still take him.
So he's over Daniels. He's over.
I have him over all those guys.
Okay.
I'm pretty much taking it. The only league that I have not taken him in yet, and the only league I took Jay Daniels over him was a league. It was a contract league, and I have only Howell and only Zach Wilson on my roster right now, and that's the only reason I didn't take him. Is I didn't have a starting quarterback going into the season. If it wasn't for that, if I would have had 2 playable guys, I would have probably taken Marvin Harrison.
The only drafts I've seen Marvin Harrison, the only super flex drafts I've seen Marvin Harrison go in front of Caleb Williams is somebody who had picks 1 and 2, and they picked both of them. So it didn't matter.
I love doing that. I did that when I was 7, 8, 9. I took May at pick 9 to fuck with the algorithm a little bit.
So,
I'm that guy.
I like it.
Chris Joel Smith, thanks for jumping on. Jerry Bagshaw, thanks for hi all. Thanks for jumping on. Thanks for watching live, guys. Any questions, throw them in the comments. We'll jump in. We'll ask whatever you want. So, JT, we're jumping to the Chargers here. Lad McConkey, Kamani Vidal, another fan favorite, Cornelius Johnson, and a late Brendan Rice ad, which people think is very underrated. What do you think about these Chargers?
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see what they're doing, here with John Harbaugh. The history of him and are run. So I know a lot of people are out on Lad McConkey because of that reason. I actually really like Lad. I've been taking him late first, early second in a ton of drafts. And part of the reason I'm taking him, even though I don't think they're going to throw the ball a ton, they still are going to have to throw the ball. And they have Justin Herbert, and I feel like he's the best wide out on this team. And I don't think it's very, very close at all. I think Lad's by far the number 1 wide on this team. Brendan Rice is interesting with a late pick. He's a guy I would definitely take a shot on late in my rookie drafts. I think there's a lot of different ways he could go. I think he could easily not make this team or be a practice squad player all year. But there's also, with Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer, with the history of Josh Palmer getting hurt, they also just signed DJ Clark. Yep, sir. Thank you. DJ Chark, who's also had injury history. there's a good chance even if Brendan Wright starts on the practice squad that he could end up being a top 3 wideout. Now, a top 3 right on the Chargers who doesn't throw the ball very much. How much fantasy production is that going to give you? I don't know, but I think he's worth a stash. Another really great late stash, I think, for them is Kamani Vidal, the running back out of Troy. They took him in the 6th round, but, you've got Gus Edwards. Gus is going to be Gus. He's solid. He's consistent, but he's not anything special. You got J.K. Dobbins off of a million injuries. Everybody's hoping this is the year he can pull together. I'm not so sure. And beyond those 2 guys, you got Vidal and you got Isaiah Spiller. So I think, Vidal, obviously the healthiest guy. I just think Vidal is a guy that I'm totally wanting to stash. I've seen him jump all the way up to early 3rd in some leagues, but after he was jumping, it's real high. I agree. So he was mostly going mid 4th to late 4th, and then some people have really jumped on him. I'm still not taking that early. If he's there late 3rd, early 4th, I'm taking a shot at him, especially if I need running back, because I think he's a guy that you can count. But here's the thing is, I think he's worth taking a shot on. But again, he's a 6th round running back. Let's not get crazy and think like he's guaranteed the starter. We also have a lot of months still till the season starts. Teams can still make some moves. There's a chance they bring somebody else in. But for me, even though I don't think this team's going to throw a lot, I think Ladd McConkey ends up being the number 1 for Herbert. So that's why I'm all over him. And not a rookie, but I think a sneaky pickup, if you're on waivers right now, is Will Disley. They picked him up when he was healthy. He was solid in Seattle, but the problem was something. He just couldn't stay on the field. When he stayed on the field, he was good. And they played a lot of 3 wideout sets. Or 3 tight end sets. It's basically him and Hayden Hurst right now. And I think unless you think Donald Parham is going to steal much, but
I feel so bad for Justin Herbert.
So it feels like he doesn't have much around him, and that's why I feel like Ladd McConkey, unless Quentin Johnson takes a huge step, which I just don't see it, I think Ladd McConkey, even a team that doesn't throw a lot, is going to have a shot to be fantasy relevant year 1.
Me and JT just had a draft cup, 45 rounds of NFL draft. People were getting tired. I got Will Disley in around 45. It was the best.
It was a steal.
It was a steal. Everybody, I said yes.
I was actually mad because I was mad because I actually missed it when I was putting extra guys on my list. I saw you take him. I was like, John got him.
So how many passes do you think, how many receptions, let's say, how many targets do you think Ladd McConkey has this year? Over 100, under 80, over 120?
I think he gets 100 plus. I really think he could be – I don't think he's got an 80, 90 reception season in him this year, but I could easily see him somewhere between 65 and 70, get somewhere between 750 and 850 yards, maybe 900 if he gets a little deeper passes. And I think you could probably count him for 5 or 6 touchdowns. So I don't think the volume's going to be crazy high, but I think he's going to end up being their number 1. And depending on if they get in a lot of shootouts like they did last year, those numbers could go up because they could be playing from behind a lot. And maybe the Chargers are forced into passing even if they don't want to. They're forced to throw the ball a lot because they're in a lot of shootouts.
Dan, we'll jump to the Chiefs now. Xavier Worthy, is he the savior of the franchise here or what? They got rid of some people, but there's going to be some people they may have to get rid of if they keep acting like fools, across the board and get arrested every weekend.
But Rashee Rice.
Rashee Rice is right. So what happens here with Xavier Worthy? Is he the next coming of the savior of this franchise, or what's the story here?
If there's not a better landing spot, I think, than where they go into Kansas City, right? Ran a 4.4240, broke the record, speed. They let a speedster go, a couple years ago to Miami. That was a much wanted, body last year. They needed someone that could take the top off the defense. They need someone that not just take the top off, but really stress those 2 high safeties that teams love to run against Mahomes. They take away the big playability. MVS sucks. The dude can't catch a cold.
He had to
fall down to catch a pass. That's because the ball couldn't bounce anywhere because it was throwing so softly.
I thought it was the ballsiest play ever.
I was like, I can't
believe he threw it out to him.
The MVS
just lays it out there.
That's trust. They love throwing the guys that they love incorporating the receivers that just aren't good, right? Tony, the Juju from a couple years ago. Sky Moore's going to bust. Worthy, he gets Andy Reid's offense. He gets an offense. He gets paired with a coach who knows how to scheme up a player of his, his role and his caliber to get the most out of, right? He's not going to be Tyreek. No one's Tyreek.
Right.
He's not that type of running back hybrid, but he can utilize speed that he presents in a positive way where his ceiling is insane. If there's one team that can realize that ceiling, it's going to be Kansas City. And if he can get himself there, it's lights out. He could outproduce some of the one of or two of the top 3 receivers in the class. People shouldn't be shocked. Now, there is a floor that's a little worse. The role, if he plays early on, is that deep threat. There's not a lot of targets in that type of role. Rashee Rice, if he can save himself out of trouble and not get suspended, he plays a target hog role. Obviously, Travis Kelce has a extension. He's a target hog guy. So Rice early on, it might take him a bit. They also signed Marquise Brown to play a similar role, needing a guy that can stretch the defense and actually catch a football. So Worthy may not be what you want year one, unless injuries happen, which Marquise Brown has a history of injuries. Rashee Rice is going to be suspended probably. That's it. And obviously, Travis Kelce, but he's tight end. He plays different roles. So Worthy can get himself from the field early on. He could pay off on his draft capital. He's my wide receiver 4. I tiptoe between him and Brian Thomas because I love both spots.
Yeah.
Worthy's ceiling, perfect landing spot, great draft capital. Chiefs traded up for him. It's everything you want. If he doesn't hit, fine. It is what it is. He's going to cost you a mid-first. I'm fine with that.
So in the 4th round, they picked up Jared Wiley, a tight end. Is he just a backup right now for
athletic?
Yeah, he's very athletic. It's going to take a year for these guys to learn. We all kind of know how that works out. Tight ends have been more productive early on lately, but you got Jared Wiley now. Travis Kelce just signed an extension, but are they going to go to 2 tight ends set now if something does happen to Rashee Rice where he's not available for the first couple games? What do they do? They just Sky Moore bump up the bump up here? Are we going to wait for Kadarius Toney to maybe produce? Like, what is that?
Hardman? Yeah.
Nico Hardman? I mean, there's not a lot of options here.
It seems like a stash to me.
If Noah Gray's still on the team, I think Gray's still the number 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going to take a couple injuries for Gray and for Kelce. And I think if they get down to Wiley, then Chiefs are probably not in the best of spots due to injury. But I agree, John, the injury or end of bench stash.
Yeah.
Probably don't even have to draft them in most leagues.
Yeah.
Most leagues you can get.
Just pick them up from a taxi squad if you got them. Because it takes, obviously, we got spoiled last year with rookie tight ends. That's the anomaly. That's a unicorn season. We got to go back to expecting 2, 3, 4 years plus.
Yeah.
Unless you're elite, which Wiley's not, it's going to be a while, and you still have to get lucky to get into his role. But I think for a guy to learn, or for a guy who gets to learn under Kelce with Andy Reid, that type of same mold and body, there's a chance there.
Sure,
there's a chance.
JT, I said this on purpose so you can talk about the Colts on this whole situation. So they got a troublemaker themselves, they had Mitchell, Anthony Gold later in the draft. So tell me about A.D. Mitchell and what he means to the Indianapolis Colts, because he's, what were you thinking when you heard that pick?
So I was a little torn on this one because I was out on A.D. Mitchell prior to the draft. I just wasn't I was telling people, I go, unless he ends up on the Steelers or the Colts, there's no way I'm taking him anywhere. He just feels like one of those guys that fake you out. It's like he's got everything he should. He's speed. He's tall. I mean, he's got ability. He's like everything that you want. And it just seems like there's something missing from him for me. And I don't know if it's just – I just got a bad feeling that he's one of those players we always look at, 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the line are like, man, why didn't that guy ever hit? Why didn't he ever, put it together? And that's what I'm a little worried about with him. Obviously, I'm rooting for him on the Colts. I'm hoping he ends up being really well. Taking him in the second, at least I like that where they got him. At least they didn't reach on him there. So I thought it was worth the gamble in the second. To me, it's a draft pick that they're going, okay, we're taking him, hoping he can be who we thought Alec Pierce was going to be, which I thought this would really be the year for Alec Pierce with AR, hopefully playing a full season, being healthy, because he's throwing the deep ball. That's what he does best. Alec Pierce runs great deep routes. He ran deep routes all year last year. He was open all the time. Gardner Minshew couldn't get him the ball. either because he didn't have time or he just couldn't get the ball down the field. It was a problem. So Mitchell's a guy I am really, which I never say this, I'm avoiding him in drafts, especially for Colts players. I'm always saying, unless he falls really far to me, like he's like late second round, early third, and all the guys in his range are already gone, am I taking a shot on him? I don't know that he's a high producer in this offense. I think Pittman's still number one. I think Josh Downs, when he was healthy last year, if it wasn't for, he had one of the best rookie seasons in Colts history, and he missed like 3 or 4 games with a knee injury. He was kind of like 75-80% a couple other games. So I think him coming back, I think Downs ends up being their number 2. So I'm a little low on AD Mitchell. And Anthony Gould, I like the pick of him. He's a speedster. Guy's got a ton of wheels. The thing with him, I think he's going to be more of a special teams guy. He's going to be more of a kick punt returner. So if you're in a league that counts kick for punt return yards and you start a lot of players, it's a really deep league. He's a guy I would consider taking that he could maybe fill in some slots if you got real desperate during the season with injuries, bye weeks.
Right.
He's a guy maybe to hold on to. I don't see him breaking the actual wide receiver lineup unless there's injuries, like a bunch of injuries. He's a guy that needs a lot of work still. He's pretty young as far as as being a receiver, working on his game. But I did like it because I feel like the Colts forever always ignore special teams and they just throw whoever's the 4th running back out there or the 6th wide receiver to kick and punt return. You're like, why would you put a guy with some ability that has a shot to break it? And they haven't really had a guy since Deion Hines, since they traded him away. So I do like the fact that they went and got him. So down on those guys a little bit as far as Colts are concerned. Only taking those guys in deep leagues, like a 14, 16 team league, where I'm taking him in maybe the 5th round of rookie drafts if you got a really deep league. And then Mitchell, I'm not taking him unless he gets to me in the 3rd. There's just too many other guys I like in the 2nd round where he's going right now.
Yeah, a lot of talent, but there's a lot of question marks too. So we'll go to Jorge, our commander-in-chief here, talk about his Commanders team. Dan, Jaden Daniels, which we talked about. Who got picked number 2 would be probably the better quarterback situation besides whoever ended up with the Patriots. Ben Sinnott, great tight end, Luke McCaffrey. And, just in case Jay Daniels doesn't work out, they signed Sam Hartman from Notre Dame also.
Pretty quarterback in the class.
Is the best here, the head and shoulders. So tell me about these Commanders. Jaden Daniels, Ben Sinnott, who I just got at the end of round 2 in 2 different rookie drafts yesterday. So Luke McCaffrey and Sam Hartman. Tell me about these Commanders.
I love Jaden Daniels. It's been my QB2 whole process. Huge fan, big playability. I have a type when it comes to quarterbacks. I want rushing upside. In single QB, I take him over Caleb. I want rushing upside, and that's what Jaden's going to provide. Super flex, I'm not going to get that crazy. But when it comes to what he can do for this team, he provides a Kyler Murray type dynamic, which is why when they brought in Cliff, worked with Kyler in Arizona, you get that similar, feeling. Kyler is a much more polished passer, 2-sport background, more of a Russell Wilson type of guy. But with Jaden, you get the experience. You got to see the progression from moving from Arizona State to LSU to being a nobody to now being the number 2 pick. Rushing upsides, his rushing floor and upside is massive. As long as he can stay healthy, which if you watch any of his film, he's got to protect himself. Dude is 6'3", 100, like 200 pounds. He's tiny. The hits that he takes, he needs to protect his body. Otherwise, he will end up like Richardson from this past year. You don't want that from a guy that you just spent your entire foundation on to get, and that could hurt him. But
that's my only dig.
That is the big concern.
Is the hits and his size. With him running, because you saw AR get hurt, and AR is twice the size of him.
He's Cam Newton.
So it's
Josh Allen.
So that's my biggest worry is he going to be RG3 that looks really good, and you're like, oh, this guy's going to be awesome, and then he gets hurt, and it takes away that part of his game where he just doesn't move as much, and now you're like, ugh. If he's just stuck in the pocket, is that going to be a problem? I don't know there. I'm nervous because I did not like him at all until this last season.
Well, no one did. That's why
And so it's like,
league,
yeah, and so it's like, that's the nervousness for me. It's like, oh man, he's gonna make it. Changing of the guard for the Commanders. So you're like, hopefully this new coaching staff, like they're going to do it better than the old one. But that's where my reservations on him are right now.
Shades of Justin Fields. If things can't get it going in Washington, obviously a little bit better playmakers to start around him. Benson, that was a fantastic pick. A lot of people decided to got the draft capital. Got a wide open room to potentially start early on. Logan Thomas, I believe, retired. They have nobody else really there.
Turner was our man. Then they signed Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
So they got
Zach
Benson.
Ertz, Zach Ertz, 35,000 years old, 35,000 injuries, also can't stay healthy. Also kind of gave us a bump in the Trey McBride, so maybe we get that with Benson. Luke McCaffrey, not hyper productive for Rice. Rice is in the football a lot. He was the guy though. I think he's 6'1", 180, like 198. So he's got decent size. Played a lot out of the slot to get the ball into his hands pretty quickly. I think he's a nice pairing alongside Dotson, alongside McLaurin. Can kind of give Daniels another option early on to work with. Don't think he's going to be much for fantasy this early on unless injuries occur, but it's not great. Daniels, I think, has QB1 upside because of the rushing production. Washington had a good draft. We're going to see how this plays out. You can't be mad at it though. Obviously, it is Austin Eckler on the backfield as a pass catcher. So if he doesn't want to run, at least dump it off to one of the league's best pass catching backs.
McCaffrey is one of the guys that is really kind of becoming a steal in rookie drafts. He's the guy that everybody's kind of just passing on. So why
take Matt McConkey when you can take Luke? Take McCaffrey. 2 rounds later.
McCaffrey's really been going like early to mid 4th round in a lot of leagues.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of like wideouts of like 5th, 6th round picks going in front of him, even as a 3rd round pick. So he's a guy I've been keeping an eye on. I'm not overdrafting him. I'll say as well, I do think you find a role there. I just don't think it's going to be much fantasy, especially this year one. I just don't think he's going to be.
It might be more special teams.
I think he'll get on the field. I just don't know if he sees a lot of targets. But if he's getting to me in the 4th, I'm stacking him up in the 4th. I'll sit on him with those kind of because he's a guy still. Played quarterback his whole life. Only played wideout the last 2 years on a Rice team that didn't throw the ball a lot until who was it? CJ Daniel, is that who transferred there? Why am I blanking on his name? He played in 87 different colleges.
Oh my God!
But JT Daniel.
Yeah, there you go.
JT Daniel. Sorry. How did I forget that? But yeah, so until his last year, did they really even throw the ball much because they were almost a wing T type of offense for a lot of years. So he's a guy I'm looking at in drafts, not because I want him high, but I'm taking him if everybody else is skipping him.
Sure.
And we're getting into taking 5th, 6th round rookies. I'm taking a guy.
He's got a path there early. He's got a path to your production, and that's always a good path, like not injury path.
Powerful offense this year, a lot of weapons. So, JT, to you, Dallas Cowboys. We knew for sure they were taking a running back. We knew it was going to happen. We were waiting to see who it was going to be, and they just swung and missed on running back, and they picked Ryan Flournoy. What happened there?
I will make this short and sweet. They did nothing on offense. I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. Jerry Jones says he's going all in. I don't know if he knows what all in actually means. But yeah, they didn't do anything in the draft. Ryan Flournoy I like is like kind of a long shot. Small school receiver, but the only thing I can say about this draft, if you have Jalen Tolbert, you're feeling pretty good about Jalen Tolbert all of a sudden because
Tolbert too.
Because he's like
last year was rough.
I know, and that's the thing is it is rough, but it's like at this point they're almost like forcing him to play because they just unless they go out fine, but they're running out of free agent wideouts to sign. So if you got Jalen Tolbert, you're like, okay, that's pretty. Florian, I don't love anything that they did. I don't like anything they've done in the offseason. He's okay, but again, if I'm in a big league that deep rosters, I'm probably picking him up as a free agent off the waiver wire after the draft. I'm probably not even.
I don't even know what Dallas is doing with this draft. Like,
it doesn't make
they won this division. You obviously need help at receiver. I don't know why you spend up in the deepest class to get one. running backs, whatever, like they free sign Zeke. I mean, honestly, passing the running back, the team that wants to win now, I think it's okay to still bring back Zeke, but to wait this long and take any sort of positional players on offense to give Dak more weapons to throw to. Right now, it's with Lamb and Cooks,
Yep,
and then whatever tight ends going to stay healthy enough to start. That's it.
Right, it's going to be Jake Ferguson. That's
get that one short for you.
The Jake Ferguson show. Yes, exactly. I was at the draft, and the Dallas Cowboy fans at the end of the day too were absolutely furious with it.
Yeah, there's something wrong with seeing a crying Cowboy. So.
Dan, my Dolphins: Jalen Wright, Malik Washington, Tajay Washington. So what happened with these Dolphins? They already had tons of speed on the team already. They decided to get one of the fastest running backs and some little speed that Malik Washington too. Yeah. So what happened there?
I love this spot for Wright. I think it's a great pick for Miami, just in terms of more insurance. It's hard for me to see how he gets on the field year one to be productive outside of an injury. Maybe there's this let going of, Achane couldn't stay healthy much last year. He's none of these three are really full-time backs, which means if you get into a three-headed backfield, good luck picking out which one's going to actually score that week. I'm a big fan of Wright. Like, maybe this could be a spot in a year or two, but
they have a type for sure.
They
have a type.
Somewhat small and thin. It can run a sub 4.4, which is fine because that offense. Like, good luck stopping that offense when Tua is actually playing pretty good. Right. Malik Washington fits in that wide receiver 3 spot. It was a very vacant spot. Like the product out of Virginia, speedster, smaller guy. He was their guy. Like, he was Virginia's offense. So there's some opportunity there. But again, this is Waddle, this is Hill. That's their offense. And
they really needed a third complementary player, though. I do understand that.
Great NFL move. I think it's going to help the offense more, especially if as Hill gets older and he's starting to get beat up with injuries. Waddle has struggled to stay on the field for a full season consistently. Sneaky pick, redraft, watch list guy.
Why bring in Odell Beckham Jr.?
Same reasons why they wanted to draft Malik Washington. Malik Washington's going to beat on Odell Beckham. I think he's like, his contract sounds better. 1 year, $8.5 million with incentives. Otherwise, it's a 1 year, $3 million. Yeah. Almost a vet mid. Odell may not make the team.
He may not.
I like Washington. Washington's one of my favorite late round sleepers.
He was.
I like taking him if I can get him, and I've been taking him in late 3rd to mid 4th round. I just like that spot. I think he beats out Braxton Berrios for that 3rd wide receiver spot.
Sure.
And then I just don't think Beckham, to me, he's a guy. He'll make some plays. I just don't expect
the same reason he went to Baltimore. He's trying to chase.
Yeah, he's chasing. So I like Malik Washington, especially that super late draft capital in the 6th round. I think a lot of people thought he would be probably at least a 4th rounder. So 6th round's kind of late, but I think he fits this system.
Yeah, he does.
And so I really like him, especially any kind of injury to Waddle or Tyreek misses a couple games. He's going to be a guy that's going to be the first guy to be slotted in for one of those guys. So I like him. And then Wright, I was not a big Wright guy coming in. I was probably lower on him than most people. But he had the perfect could not have got a better landing spot for the type of player he is than Miami. So I'm not drafting him super high. But again, if he falls to me or I have Achane or Mozart, I'm liking him because I'm like, hey, one injury, plug and play. Yeah. He's going to get in there and get some plays. And again, he could be one of those guys. He might not get you much certain weeks, but he could be an Achane last year where he gets a couple big runs here and there, and he gives you some points as a flex play, on certain weeks.
Yeah, JT, we're on you with the Eagles now. Will Shipley, Johnny Wilson, Anaya Smith. What happened with the Eagles here? Because Johnny Wilson is converted tight end, right? Is he going to play tight end or just stay at receiver?
Well, the Eagles really need to go defense, so they really concentrated on defense in this draft. So they kind of went later with the offensive picks. I really like the Will Shipley pick. I think he's underrated. He can play special teams. So again, if you're in one of those leagues where you get kick return, punt return yards, he's a guy that will kick and punt return. I think he will get some work in the passing game. That's kind of where his game is at with Clemson. So I really like him as a kind of a backup to Saquon. And depending on what they do with kind of
they had Kenny Gainwell already.
I know.
What happened?
But again, I think I think Will Shipley's more of they're looking a year or two down the line with him, possibly here. But I think he's a good stash. I've been seeing him go like third round in a lot of leagues. People are kind of taking him in that range. I have him as my QB or my RB8, I think, coming into the draft. So I like him there. Johnny Wilson, Nia Smith. I'm not super high on either one of those guys. I'm not really drafting them. Johnny Wilson's going to stay as a wideout. I don't see him being 6'6", I don't see him being a big productive fantasy guy is the problem. I think he could be an okay guy in real life on the team to kind of help him in certain situations. I just don't ever see him being a huge fantasy.
Same team. He's clunky.
And I liked Auden Tate.
I did too.
But he was a guy you just never could really find a full role. Nia Smith is kind of interesting because he did play running back and wide receiver. So he's a guy that can play a little bit all over the place. Again, for me, he's a flyer or a pickup free agent after the draft. If you have room to stay. Now, the only thing with him there, I like Paris Campbell going there, but Paris Campbell, it's like, I thought he was going to do something with the Giants, and he did nothing last year. So there's a chance that, if they like Smith and Smith impress him, he could slide into that wide receiver 3. Quez Watkins is gone. Alchemidas is gone. So, they got Devontae Parker, who if everybody's looked up the analytics on Devontae Parker, that's a no-go. So basically, Nia Smith is kind of sneaky. Paris Campbell can't end up working in as the third. So not a lot to love offensively as far as fantasy rookies go, but I think Shipley's worth a stash, especially if you have a team with Barkley. Because if Barkley gets banged up at all and misses some time, I can see Shipley and Gainwell almost going 50-50 backing him up.
Eagles hit a home run on a defensive backfield in this draft, so that was kind
of defense is where they needed, and they crushed them.
Yeah. Dan, Falcons. They have a quarterback for 4 years, $180 million, and let's go take our number 9 or 10 pick and take Michael Penix Jr., Jace McClellan, Casey Washington. Sell me on the Falcons. Come on, be the Falcons. I got you. You got to tell us how good the Falcons are.
So I'm working this beer event, and I had a guy walk up to me wearing a Falcons hat, and I told him I asked him how he was doing. He was working through it. He said when the pick made, he was super pissed, yelling and screaming. He goes, I've been listening to guys. They're talking me into this. In the middle of saying that, he goes, what the fuck am I talking about? I just think he's so mad. Because it is objectively the worst pick I've ever seen. Even if Penix is a hit. The GM that took him probably won't even be there, right? The GM drafted the quarterback of the future, and he won't even be on the team when it happens. That's how bad that pick was. But if there's something wrong with Cousins, if something were to happen, or if he's not as far along with his recovery, or if they want to get out of him after a year or two, which is odd to me because Penix is already 24 and a half years old. He steps into a good offense, at least a good collection, right? Sure. A Sean McVay tree, new coach. We're going to need a little more modern movement to it, right? The opposite of Arthur Smith. That's a good thing, right? He's got Bijan, he's got Drake London, he's got Kyle Pitts. Those guys will be even further along in their careers if they're still there. It's just, where do you take Penix? That's the problem. He was a surefire first round pick in your team in that same range. Because I may not love Penix, but in super flex leagues, obviously quarterback is your king, and you can't just let guys fall because you don't love them. They're going to start. He's going to get a chance. Now it may be till he's in his mid-20s that he even gets a shot, and the entire team could look different by that point. So there's a wasted pick, especially with looking at Romo dudes in there. They could have taken Brock Bowers there, an objectively terrible spot with Pitts, and it would have been immensely better than this move. So I feel bad for Atlanta fans. I really do, because I don't know how you maneuver from this, but Chase McLean, running back out of Alabama, he plays in the backfield of Bijan and Algier. Algier may not be much. That was kind of Arthur Smith's guy, so maybe he could take his role. But Algier was good last year. Bijan's Bijan. I don't see where McLean fits in. And then I don't know who the other guy is.
Yeah, McClellan, like I
don't know who Casey Washington.
Yeah, so Casey Washington's out of Illinois. He's 6th round pick. So
that's
so
there you go.
He's a deep sleeper. He's unless you are like a 16-team league that has 4 or 5 rounds, he's not going to get drafted in your draft. He's a stash guy. He's a practice squad guy that if injuries or something happens, maybe he can move up. But he's more stash. Jason McCloud, man. I watched a decent amount of film on him at Alabama, and he's just not very good.
No.
He's just not very good.
No.
I mean, Tyler Algier is better than him.
Yeah.
So I just don't. I don't see any
Practice
way.
squad.
I don't see any way to fantasy relevance for him. Really, he's a guy I can believe.
I tried to talk up the team, John. I tried to give him hope.
You did the best.
If Cousins gets hurt, or I don't see a world in which Penix outplays him. But if he does, and he starts, or if Atlanta gets off to a bad start in the season, they're 0-6, 1-5, 2-7, or whatever they are, maybe you see a change in the guard, right? The fan base is going to be like, you see a pick like this happen, top 10 quarterback pick, even signing Cousins, you're going to get a lot of uproar from the fans if the team starts out slow. And that'd be maybe where they make that shift that Cousins is gone after the year, or they trade Cousins in season and they just take
trade. I can see a trade
like dead cap hit,
or a trade in the offseason.
It's a front-loaded contract. I think there's void years on Cousins' contract as well. It gets set up to be just really a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
But Penix is 24. He's not McCarthy at 21. Like that would have been a more understanding pick.
Sure.
At least you get a project to work.
Yeah,
with.
you're sitting.
Penix is a 6-year starter. He has more lost seasons of injury than he does actually playing.
Yeah.
It's rough day.
JT, San Francisco 49ers, a little bit easier to swallow on this one. You got Ricky Pearsall, Isaiah Guerrero, Isaac Guerrero, Jacob Cowing, and Cody Schrader, who is a great, he's like the Rocky Balboa story, but he just, it didn't really work out too well, but it is what it is.
Well, this is crazy, obviously people seeing him take Pearsall in the first round were like, whoa, but I think
I love him.
I think they're, this pushes him up in drafts. He was like probably a mid to late second. He's now, to me, he's late first, early second. Yeah. I think he gets in there and plays. Now, is he super fantasy relevant first year? I don't think so. Unless Debo or Ayuk goes somewhere, I don't think he's going to be.
There's no incentive for the Niners to even trade.
Yeah, and so, but I like him for the future. So if you can take him in stash, I do it. Jacob Cowing was one of my favorite guys. I loved him coming in. I knew he'd kind of go late. He was just ultra productive. He's a small guy, 5'8", 165, 170. I mean, he's a pretty small dude, but ran it 4.38 or 4.39 40 at the NFL Combine, which I was shocked that he was that fast. I really like him. I think he's a player that can carve out a role eventually. So he's a guy I am snagging late third, early to mid fourth in a lot of drafts, just because I'm willing to sit him. I don't think I'm going to get much out of him this year, but I like the future of him. Running back wise, I mean, sitting behind CMC and Elijah Mitchell, you just like, you hate to see Gary Endell go to that spot, but I mean, the skill set he has and the speed with that offense, if something happens and CMC goes down, he finds himself starting, it could be pretty interesting.
You could be seeing the next Elijah Mitchell.
It could be really interesting. So Garendo going to go into the Niners, I think, is a really great landing spot as far as a backup role for him and where he could be relevant. Love Cody Schrader, the undrafted free agent out of Mizzou. I wish he would have landed somewhere else. We had a better shot to make the team, just because they're real deep at running back.
He's going to be a special team player somewhere.
I could see him making. I could see them falling in love with him and putting him on the taxi squad, the practice squad, just to be able to hold him. But if not, I think he's a guy that he ends up getting cut by them. Somebody else will pick him up. He's gonna get a shot somewhere. He's just a hard-nosed kid. He doesn't have all the athletic traits that the NFL wants. But he's one of those guys, if he gets a shot to play, I think he would surprise people.
He's a little engine that could, yeah. He just
little engine
the
that
thing
could.
Is, if they didn't take Gary Endo, I would feel much better about him signing here as an undrafted free agent. But now I'm like, you're already behind a guy they drafted with, not great draft count, but still in the 4th round as a running back. That's pretty okay these days for where running backs are going. That's not terrible. So that kind of falls back a little bit for me on there. But I think, looking at what they did, you can tell this Niners team was like, hey, we're right there as they were last year. I thought they should have won that game. So I like the Pearsall. I like the County because they were really, you can say what you want about Juwan Jennings, but he wasn't the best third option for them. So
Ricky Pearsall's 3.
Yeah, I think he's a 3.
You don't take a receiver that high in the class not want to get him on the field.
And I think he really improves that offense. And I think Cowan, like I said, I like Cowan as our 4th, a guy that can play slot, come in and help them out. I think both those guys actually are going to help this offense. Now, will they be big fantasy impacts? Probably not year 1, but I do think they're guys I am taking because I like their future. I like what I think they can do.
If they see something really good in Ricky Pearsall, you think they do move on from Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel sooner than later?
I think it comes down to money, who they can sign, what other guys they have to sign, what rookies they can get to kind of fill some defensive positions, and whether they have to bring some of those guys back. So I think it's just going to be a numbers game for them on the cap. I think they want to keep those guys. It just got to depend. Now, the one thing that helps them is Purdy's their quarterback. Yeah. Brock Purdy making no money as their starting quarterback. So, and the fact that they're not paying him anything, and even though that's a pretty big CMC contract, it looks like it's paying off. It's pretty good money for what they're getting out of him.
I think Debo's out there now.
So I think Debo, and that's where I think the Pearsall Cowing picks came in. And if Debo's the guy that's gone, then I think you have Pearsall and Cowing that can come in and play right.
They're rebuilding on strength, knowing that after this year, right? This is the final true push. The NFC is going to get really tough after this year, I think. And the CMC fall off could happen. You have all the money coming. You're going to have to pay Ayuk either a new contract or the franchise tag, which is going to be mid to high teens here at wide receiver. And you still got Kittle, who's also getting older. Like, the change of the guard is coming.
Yeah, they're in like a 2-year window, I think, here before they got to make
true 1 year.
True 1 year and max 2 before they we got to really make these decisions with
McCaffrey,
Kittle before they decide, hey, are we re-upping these guys? Are these guys going to take cheaper contracts to stay, or do we need to start thinking about replenishing with some younger guys behind him?
And Purdy's not complaining yet, but at some point in time, his agent's
going to. And eventually, at some point, he'll need a deal. And like I said, he's got another
year, maybe.
Yeah, so and if you're the Niners, if he plays really good next year, I mean, I would hate to go into that 5th-year option. I'd rather
he doesn't have it.
He doesn't have it because he's like, So you can get that. Yeah, you're right. So you have to have that. So you have to sign that contract. Yeah. You have to sign, and you don't want him to get to the very end of that contract where there's a chance he can go out there and be a free agent.
No, they won't let him walk.
So they got to get on. I'd rather get on it earlier than later.
That's where that Debo money's coming from.
Yeah,
they're gonna pull from that contract.
Dan, Giants, Malik Neighbors, Antonio Gibson. I'm sorry, I meant Tyrone Tracy, and then my guy Theo Johnson. What happened here? These Giants, they made some pretty decent moves here.
I kind of like this, especially after Darren Waller decided to retire after the first round because they didn't take a quarterback to replace Daniel Jones. Neighbors, this is the true testimony of you take talent over situation, right? Don't fall into the AJ Brown trap. Don't get pissed off because the offense doesn't look great. Dable force-fed Stephon Diggs during his time in Buffalo. Neighbors has legitimately zero competition. Wando Robinson, slot guy, gadget guy, can't stay healthy. That's it. That is their competition for sure.
That's
their competition.
Ain't no Barkley.
And no Barkley. Hyatt's it's their third quadrant deep threat. Maybe he turns into something more, but that's all he's been in college. Neighbors steps into he could lead all rookies in targets next year. Yes, the offense caps the ceiling in terms of reaching the true potential, but the Giants move on from Jones next year. We're having a different conversation in year 3 with the new quarterback coming in then maybe. And Neighbors off to the moon. Don't be afraid to draft Neighbors because don't take Worthy, don't take Thomas, don't take Parasol. If you want to take Odunze, fine. Like those are my top 3. That's never changed. All in the same tier for me. Don't be afraid by the landing spot because Neighbors landed into a volume role on an offense that's going to need to throw more.
Yeah,
No Barkley.
Great.
And then Tyrone Tracy Jr. out of Purdue. He's going to compete with Ray Davis as the oldest running back ever being drafted. Like he's an old dude, but it's Devin Singletary, and that's it. Singletary, smaller guy. And Tyrone's same. He's not big, but he's big enough. Very productive with Purdue. 1 injury away. Only thing you hope for is that the Giants' offense can score a little bit more points. Both running backs, I don't think are great pass catchers, but can do it. So there's a chance there as a mid to late 3rd round pick in your rookie drafts. Tyrone Tracy, you just throw him in the mix of guys. If you like him, you can take him at a good price. Theo Johnson's the one I love. Penn State, I don't know what's in the water at Penn State, but every single player that comes out of there, I feel like, is an athletic freak.
Yes.
Now, granted, Mike Gesicki didn't really turn out what we wanted him to be, but Mike was a true project.
He was really good early on.
He was.
Just kind of
his drops issues, I think it got into his head, and then Miami moved off of him pretty quickly. And I think it kind of ruffled his train of thought. But Theo, not the most productive at Penn State, but the most athletic tight end that tested this year, in my opinion. So this is a spot where it's wide open to take. There's Daniel Bellinger is still there, will be the starter, but Theo, hyper athletic. If you're a rookie tight end, either you produce at a decent clip in college or you're the most athletic guy. That's one guy. Those are the tight ends that I want to draft. And Theo, after your Benson Knots are gone, it's wide open, right? It's Brock Bowers, obviously big tier drop, and then you got Sanat, and then it's another big drop, and then it's a bunch of guys. Why not take the most athletic guy in that bunch and just hope that a wide open, a potentially ambiguous tight end room starts to be carved out in its favor?
Yeah, Bellinger didn't make, he due to a couple injuries, things like that.
Yeah.
Didn't really pan out. And let's just say that Darren Waller does retire. Theo Johnson could walk right into a huge role here. So
I don't think Waller's coming back to New York. I know that much.
He hasn't retired yet officially. So
he hasn't officially. He was just upset. Okay.
I'm just wondering if this regime moves on to Drew Lock over Daniel Jones. I know Daniel Jones has a lot of money.
The thing for me on Neighbors is if a Daniel Jones injury or something happens again, now you got Drew Lock.
Dare I say,
Drew Lock will gun the football down the field. So I mean, the Giants might end up being a quarterback. I would rather have Drew Lock playing personally, but
earmuffs.
I think Drew Lock actually helps Neighbors, and so that's the one thing is if he gets hurt. I mean, Drew Lock will throw him the football all the time.
Yeah.
So even if the Giants are getting murdered every game, like there is no reason.
Garbage time points are worth the same.
There's no reason to get off Neighbors because Neighbors is going to have a ton of draft capital with the draft capital, and just they're going to hit him with targets after target after target. I actually like Wan'Dale Robinson. He's like one of my sneaky guys. I'm kind of picking up because I think just the fact that if he can stay healthy, they're going to have to throw the ball.
Yeah.
And for me, I actually snuck him into a trade. I traded the 1-1 for Justin Jefferson, and I snuck in Wan'Dale Robinson on a team that was absolutely desperate for wide receiver that was going to take Marvin Harrison Jr., number 1. And I actually got an offer right before Justin Jefferson. I poked him and made him give me Wan'Dale too. So I was pretty happy with that move for a team that had, I had Hurts and Geno at quarterback with Howell backing up Geno, not super deep, but then I had no one. Josh Downs was my number 1 wide receiver by a mile. Like if I was going to compete at all, and I have loaded running backs in that league. So that's what I was talking about. One of the only leagues I would take wide out, and I would have taken in Marvin Harrison Jr., but I got offered Jefferson. I don't have a lot of Jefferson. I was like, I'm going to take.
Jefferson is better than even Caleb 101.
Yeah.
Like
so
he's worth 101 plus.
Yes, and so that's
a win.
I actually had Jefferson so I was happy with that move.
Yeah.
But I think there's just going to be a ton of targets there for them. Eric Gray, don't totally count Eric Gray out yet at running back. I don't love him, but I don't think the running back room is that great that he could still get a little play.
Ambiguous. Like if there's ever a time to get a new Dameon Pierce. Giants back.
He's been on and off my roster about 15 times in my lifetime. So, yeah. JT, we'll jump to the Jaguars here. They took Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round, Keelan Robinson, just depth at running back. So, tell me about Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, so really the only guy to talk about is Brian Thomas. I love Brian Thomas. He was number 4 for me. Him and Worthy, people had it back and forth. I had him as wide receiver for me. I love this landing spot. I just started looking early in the draft. I was like, man, the Jags would be a really good spot there, especially if Ridley left. I love it. He's going to be their deep threat. I think he's going to grow. How much production you get out of year 1 is going to be questionable, but I think he has one of the highest ceilings of any wide on this draft. If he can really refine his game, I think he could be really, really good. And I'm, we talk about it all the time, John. I'm on T-Law. I think he is still going to keep improving. I think he's got some good years ahead of him. I think he was banged up. I think his offense is going to be more improved. So I'm on Brian Thomas. I'm taking him right after Adunze and Neighbors in those drafts. He's number 4 for me personally. If I have Mahomes, I love the stack, so I'm probably taking Worthy over him in that situation. But most of the time, I'm taking Brian Thomas. I thought perfect landing spot for him on this. And then the rest of the rookies they took are really, most of the guys, I don't even know if they'll make the roster.
Yeah,
so really, he's the only guy that makes it. But I love the situation. I'm not a big Gabe Davis guy. And then Christian Kirk, I think, is a great compliment with him and Ingram. So I think Thomas can end up being that guy, even year 1 that maybe has 45, 50 catches, but gets you like 900 yards and like 7 or 8 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to continue to get more and more catches as he refines his route running.
Along with Travis Etienne and Evan Ingram, this is probably the best offense that Trevor's ever had for sure.
In this
year 4. Finally took him 4 years into his rookie season.
I had patience. I knew it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying this is on Jacksonville for winning this.
Yeah, for them
actually
messing it up.
provide him with a legitimate alpha because the best move in this case is Gabe Davis is taking that deep threat role, which leaves Brian Thomas to play that true flanker alpha, which is what that role
which really is good.
The alpha's evolved to. His route tree isn't as refined. That was more Naper's role, with LSU, but Thomas, big, fast, good outside boundary guy. I think that's where that true evolution is going to come from him. We'll get some growing pains, I think, but starts week 1, and I think Lawrence is going to fall in love with the catch radius.
I think he's going to think, hey, throw it to this guy.
Yeah,
make a play for
me. And he know that Lawrence wants to push the ball downfield.
Yes, he's going to look and see running back, tight ends covered. You see the safety cheating up, bam, you got an option
Thomas
downfield.
One downfield.
Yeah. I think he looks like T. Higgins, like that's
right.
Yeah. And I just think he's going to look for him a lot, and I just think there's going to be a lot of shootouts in the AFC South.
Yeah.
I think the AFC South, all the offenses are getting better.
Will Levis in the shootout.
Don't get me started on Will Levis. I'll start going ballistic.
All right, so we go to the JETS here, Dan. Malachi Cordy, who I'm seeing all these 4-yard ins at the ball.
He's worst hype video I've ever seen.
Yeah, these stupid highlights of Mike.
He actually made a bad catch on the ball.
He was wild, but
Braylon Allen was one of my top running backs in this league. Isaiah Davis, Travis. Not a bad draft to be honest with you, but why would you take Braylon Allen when you already have 17 decent running backs on the team already to begin with? But I'm just mad because they have they got a player on the team that went to my son's high school, and Xavier Valladay. So I wanted him to get a shot. But anyway, cool. It's he played with my son at Butler Rice High School in Chicago. So I was kind of mad when he went there, and he's sitting behind one of the best running backs in the league on top of Israel Abanikanda and blah blah, and it just kind of didn't work out. So tell me about these Jets. What do they do here?
I like the Malachi Corley pick. Obviously very raw. He was the Western Kentucky offense. That's why he's raw is because the entire game plan was to put the ball into Malachi Corley's hands and let him go to work. If I know people like to point at Xavier Leggett as Deebo Samuel in this class. Actually, Corley. The actual answer is there is none, but Corley is the guy that that is so comfortable operating short near the line of scrimmage, where Rodgers loves to check into if the matchup's there. That's one of his bread and butters. It's fine. If you're going to play off of Corley and I need 3 yards, I'm just going to check down to him and we're going to go. Great open space, good in short area fields. It's going to take a bit of time for him to kind of work back up into a true wide receiver tree role that you hope he gets there with the third round draft capital. Also, the Jets run one of the slowest paced offenses. Rodgers has historically been a very slow paced quarterback, very methodical, smart, wants to see it all, but he's very slow. I don't expect a whole lot of plays in this offense. So the downside of this is it's obviously Garrett Wilson, it's obviously Breece Hall, and then who gets the rest of it. I think Corley could find himself in that role, that number 2 spot, which is a very wide open depth chart behind Garrett Wilson. And then it come to the running backs, who's Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen. The Jets have talked constantly about wanting to have depth. They brought in Dalvin Cook as Breece was recovering from his ACL tear. That obviously didn't work out. The offense was horrible. We know that Rodgers played 4 snaps and done for the year. I think they want to let Breece not take on a true 400 touch season, because he is so dynamic with the football, which brings Allen in. I think this was a sneaky good spot in terms of the value is going to be pushed down for him. He's going to be a 3rd, 4th round pick now because of this in your rookie drafts. Big bruiser. Like, Wisconsin shifted their offense in 23 to an air raid, which brought in some pass catches, but Braylon Allen looked very uncomfortable catching passes.
I think he was thinking too much, right?
He
It wasn't about his.
It
He
looked like
was
he was trying to
recruited
grab
to
the
play
offense,
Jonathan. He was recruited to be Jonathan Taylor, and then they try to make him into something that he's not. But if you see how he was as a running back his first 2 seasons with Wisconsin, he was dominant, very good. That's what he needs to be. And if the Jets can get themselves in an offensive standpoint to be scoring a lot of touchdowns, Braylon's a bigger guy than Breece. Not by much, but he's bigger. And I think that's where you can kind of take away some of the touches from Breece, some of those short areas, not let him take a lot of unnecessary hits, let him do the work in both the receiving game and outside the 20s. Braylon's role could be early on, just score a bunch of touchdowns, get those goal lines. You play in first down leagues. Maybe he's got value. It's not the great spot in terms of overall fantasy upside, but I think this could be better for him in terms of what he could become. Isaiah Davis, I think he's just screwed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's just really.
It is
There's no much analysis there. I think he's just screwed in the depth chart behind him.
JT, Lions, Sion, Vicky, who I don't even know who that is, but and then Isaiah Williams. They didn't do much, but they, again, a big defensive draft.
They needed defense. They knew where they were at on that. Sion, the guy is a very interesting player. He played safety and running back at Utah. Right. So a lot of people were wondering if he was actually going to be a safety pick. The Lions took him and said they saw more as a running back, which is pretty interesting. So he's a guy. Until I kind of figure out what they're doing with him, I don't know if I'm taking him anywhere. He's more of a free agent pickup because obviously if he goes to running back, he's behind Monty and Gibbs pretty squarely.
Sure.
And then Isaiah Williams is a nice stash. Former high recruit quarterback out of St. Louis, went to Illinois, eventually moved to wide receiver and became their wide receiver 1 with some pretty terrible quarterback play. So I think he actually has some upside. He's not going to be in the mix now, but he's a stash. If you can put him on a taxi squad, I would take him. I've seen him mostly going in free agent, after the rookie draft. I've seen some people grab him in that 5th round. If you have like a 5th round of a 12 or a 14 league, I've seen people get him at the end of that. But to me right now, I like him for the future. He's a guy that if I had a big enough squad, I would stash him on my taxi squad and look at it. But he's not someone that's going to see any type of playing time, I would assume, this year at all. Yeah. But I think he could impress this staff. And really depending on what Donovan Peoples-Jones and Khalif Raymond do this year, I could see Isaiah Williams eventually kind of sliding into that wide receiver 3 role if he really improves. Now, I don't think that happens this year by any means, but some of these guys could be gone after this year. So he's a guy, I think if you get him in a NFL system where he's running white routes all the time with good quarterbacks and really figuring out that time and everything, he's a guy I think has high upside. Sure. Didn't have a great combine. It kind of hurt him in the draft, which is why he didn't get drafted. That's why he was an undrafted free agent. But I think he's smart, and he reminds me a lot of those guys that were converted quarterbacks that went to wide receiver and then ended up carving out like a wide receiver 3 role in the NFL.
I had to add him to this list because he went to Illinois, so I had to let you talk a little bit. Well, so now we are at we're at the Packers now. Dan, Packers. Marshawn Lloyd, a lot of debatable top 3 running back in this league. And then Michael Pratt, underrated quarterback. Just a good depth behind Jordan Love. Tell me about the Packers draft real fast.
Again, this is very much a defensive draft. They bring in Josh Jacobs. The contract is extremely front-loaded, where they can be out of Jacobs after this season. I think this is a prove-it season to an extent of, like, the way that the contract is situated. This is basically just a prove-it season for Jacobs that we can keep going with it. I think Jacobs does have a bounce-back season. It's a good offense, a good young offense, a lot of scoring potential for him there.
A lot of receptions.
A lot of receptions in this week's world. Lloyd, 5'8", big guy. It's great to see him be athletic as he was in the combine testing, just coming off of all the injuries that he had to go through in college. He's behind Jacobs and Dillon. That's a rough spot to be in. I think his best card role is he's one injury away guy.
He's behind Dillon?
He's not playing Dillon's role. He's mostly going to be behind Jacobs. Dillon is. I think if Jacobs gets hurt, then Dillon's Lloyd. I think you're going to see Lloyd maybe use it as a pass catcher in the press conferences. Green Bay, Matt LaFleur liked his pass catching. I thought he said he was underrated. Didn't do a whole lot in college, but it's because he played South Carolina because he's Mr. Rattler. It's more so if anything happens to Jacobs and it becomes a two-headed crap field, and that's not really something I want to deal with. But I like Lloyd. I like the story. If Jacob struggles this year, I'll be more invested. But in terms of redraft for year one, in terms of dynasty outlook for year one, it's going to be pretty slim unless something happens to Jacobs.
Yeah, very good.
All right, Pratt's fine. I do like that move.
I think Pratt can end up being that Clifford for a QB.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
And if I'm taking Lloyd, just a real quick throw, I'm taking him not expecting him much this year.
No.
expecting that maybe Jacobs is gone next year, and then Lloyd becomes the number 1. So if I'm taking him, that's where that's my expectation.
Yeah, that's 100%. All right, so now we move on. JT Panthers, Jonathan Brooks, another fan favorite. Xavier Legette, Tavian Sanders, the tight end. How did they do here? How did the Panthers do?
Obviously needed a ton of help on offense. I thought the Brooks pick was really good. Benson was my first guy. Brooks was number 2. I think Brooks is a nice landing spot there. I think they just signed my guy, Rashad Penny. We'll see how much play he gets, but I think that's also maybe an early part of the year thing in case. I would not expect them to just throw Brooks into the fire.
Right.
I think they'll kind of bring him along, but I like that situation. I like Xavier Legette a lot more than a lot of other people, but that's because I watched him a ton last year at South Carolina. I know the late breakout age. He's older. He had one good season. I know all those things. I'm still taking a chance on him, especially a guy that they took in the first round, and that right now you're getting him anywhere mid to late second round in rookie drafts. I'm going to take that chance on a guy who's a first round pick.
Sure.
If he ends up busting, he ends up busting. But I was really mad as in the draft this morning. I thought I was going to get him at 211. Somebody traded in front of me and took him in front of me at 210. So I was hoping I was going to get him at 211, which is really late. So he's a guy I'm definitely keeping an eye out. I'm not going out of my way to draft him early, but if he falls to me, I'm taking him. I just think it's worth the upside there. Beyond that, Ja'Tavion Sanders is interesting. Tommy Tremble's not really a receiving tight end. Ian Thomas isn't either. So those guys are more blind. So I think Sanders is going to have a shot. I got a little down on him in the pre-draft process. He didn't shot out as good as I thought he would. I liked Sinet better. But I think he's going to have a chance to play. Now, how much is that going to be rookie year? I wouldn't think a lot, honestly. So if you're taking him, I would not take him early, expecting him to be the tight end 1 in a premium league. If you're taking him, expect to sit on him at least a year to kind of learn the system and get it. But I like Brooks. I think taking Brooks at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round is nice value. And if you get Legette anywhere from mid to late second round, I think is worth taking a chance on.
Sanders was your early lead horse in the early rookie drafts, and then they just kind of just ghosted him as far as ADP is concerned.
Just didn't have having an unathletic showing at the combine.
Yeah, and when you were supposed to be one of the more athletic tight ends, and then he was pretty low on the athletic scale. I think scared some teams away. So I think he's a guy that still has a shot, but going 4th round really did not help his cause much.
I'll make one note on Leggett. The coaching staff is obsessed with him. Obsessed.
Yeah.
Thielen, 34 years old, whatever he is. Deontay Johnson, Target Hopkins, the new offense, new coaching staff. Like they're gonna find an opportunity to get there. If there's a guy that's gonna give you 100+ targets and give you Ladd McConkey numbers, 5-6 picks after McConkey goes, gonna be Leggett.
Yeah, I think their numbers
They're
could be
just
very
scared
similar,
of
even if Ladd's one on the Chargers.
I can get him
two.
6 picks earlier, and he's bigger.
Yeah. I think you're getting a discount right now because people are down on the offense. They're down on Bryce Young, and everybody has in their mind that he's Jonathan Mingo, and I think he's way better than Jonathan Mingo. His stats were way better than Jonathan
There's
Mingo.
also an entirely different coaching staff than Mingo's rookie season.
That's all I saw after draft day was the Spider-Man memes with Jonathan Mingo.
And
they're very similar in terms of actual, profile. But
Yes.
you have a whole new coaching staff coming in.
I think that's hoping pushes drafts like that, which I love. Because I'll take him later.
All right, 7 more to go. Patriots for Dan. Drake May, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, fan favorite right there. Joe Milton, my guy, my bae, and Jaheim Bell. Tell me about the Patriots this year because they need a lot of offensive help.
This is a landing spot a lot of people wanted to see the rookie quarterbacks avoid. Obviously, New England had one of the worst rosters coming into the draft. I think it's like a pretty bad roster leaving the draft. I believe they should have traded the pick just to help build the complementary pieces before throwing in a rookie quarterback into this mayhem. Also, this is a year one without Coach Belichick. There's a lot of expectations in all different directions. May's going to fit in terms of fantasy production. You're not drafting him in single QB leagues. There's just no reason to. Super flex, he's your QB3-ish guy on your bench because you don't know what the upside of New England's offense is even going to look like, right? Stroud stepped into a very similar situation in Houston last year. Great. Are you really going to expect to see that year two? Or not year two, but with a new quarterback in the same situation? I would not bet on that. I like May. I didn't love May as much as others. I've always had McCarthy over him, which has kind of been a big talking point on my show. But what New England at least did was load up on receivers. Yes. So wide open receiver room right here, right? It's Kendrick Bourne. Was it Dario Darius or Dario Davis? Whatever the hell is it?
Demario Douglas.
Demario Douglas. A bunch of wide receiver fours. I think Bourne's coming off of a season-ending injury from last year. Polk, 2nd round. Baker, 4th round. It's these guys both have the opportunity to start week 1. I think they both could. They both play very different. I don't say different roles, but they can gel well together on the outside. Let Bourne operate out on the side, which is where he typically goes. Both are steals. I took Baker because I like Baker more than Polk. I took Baker at the 305 in a draft. I got Polk 4 picks later with May on my team because I got May. It's a deal. I don't know which one will hit. If either of them hit, I think one of them will produce this year though. And if I can get them both for cheap, which is happening right now, that's a great thing because we haven't got rookie camp. We don't have mini camp yet. We don't have OTAs, training camp, and preseason to help shape this out. One of those guys, and not both of them, will shine themselves through and be that lead guy. Because, again, in a AFC East that could lead shootouts in the AFC Conference being as high, being as prolific as they come, I can see May in a lot of garbage time. I can see Polk and Baker in a lot of garbage time scoring you points. Because I don't care how the points come, as long as they get there.
As long as they get there is right. And they got Jacoby Brissett to lead along Drake May, just in case he's not ready to start from the get-go. They solidified the running back room with Stevenson and Gibby. Getting the receivers and the tight end to start, kind of speed up the process here, get the offense kick-started was exactly what they needed to do. So, very good. JT, the Raiders, they had this awesome tight end already, and they go and get Brock Bowers. And then they bring Dylan Lobb in, to assist the offense here. Tell me about the Raiders here. What were they doing?
I love the Bowers pick. I mean, just
I would
going.
have loved if he went anywhere else besides the team that I already had. I just traded.
I understand everybody loves the mayor pick, and so they're like, oh, Bowers, but I just like that they went with best player available. I mean, the fact that Bowers was there. I had a bet in. I thought they were for sure going to get Penix, so I thought that was going to be their pick.
Yeah.
And then I think they kind of, when Atlanta took him, they were like, oh, I think it like threw them off. Like they were like, because that's what I think that's what the Raiders thought they were going to do there. So I actually like the pick. I think it seems like I'm saying this a lot, but I can see a lot of teams playing two tight ends this year because I think that's more an offensive weapon. I think Mayer actually plays the traditional tight end, and I think Bowers is going to move all over the place. I mean, you saw him in Georgia. He was a lead receiver every year. They handed the ball off to him.
5 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, 5 rushing touchdowns. He had one was like an 85-yarder, so it wasn't like they were just doing the inside handoff on the goal line. Like, they were legit giving him carries. Like, I think he's going to move around and just be an offensive weapon, so I really like that move. I think they're both playable. I like them both. I took Bowers in a league that I had Mayer, and I took him anyway because I was like, he fell all the way to like 109 or 110 in one of my leagues, and I was like, I gotta take him here. Yeah. So I took him. I think he's just a nice addition. Dylan Lobb,
I like Lobb.
I think he can end up finding a role there because I just don't really like any other running backs there. Amir Abdullah's been there forever. Like, he's a whatever. Alexander Madison, he got his chance last year and didn't look great in Minnesota. Zamir White will start. Yeah. So, but I think Lobb it. If you're talking about a late round pick, a 6th round pick, that guy's got a chance to actually play. I think he's actually got a shot to play on this team.
Amir Abdullah, he's going to beat Amir Abdullah. Zamir White had less than 100 receiving yards last year. Lobb's role is receiver, right? Him and Bucky Irving were the 2 most productive receiving backs in this class coming into here. Lobb, obviously 6th round, I think he's right where I think he'd go.
Yep.
Great. Like, he had like 300 receiving yards in a game.
Yeah, he definitely feels, to me, like you said, I think it's one of the better landing spots for a late round guy in that nobody else in their backfield does what he does.
Carter Minshew or Aiden O'Connell.
Dump offs. It's
going to be dump off. Like you said, like it's not just going to go to Devonta, or it's not going to just go to Myers, Bowers, or Mayer. Like, Lobb is going to fit into a role that's going to keep the chains moving. Like Minshew can run, doesn't choose to run all the time, but he likes to have those types of backs that he can utilize.
He moves around a lot and tries to find guys like
Yeah,
they brought in Gallup, more outside help, but it seems like they're funneling everything towards the middle of the field.
Gallup, he did go there, didn't he?
Yeah, he did go there, but he's an outside guy anyway, so it is what it is. Dan, the Rams, Blake Corum, and Jordan Whittington. So tell me about Blake Corum. That's all I need to talk about.
If you want to talk, so when this draft was picked, my first comment was the battle of the short kings. Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, Spider-Man name, first off. We all knew the Rams were going to add running backs to this backfield. They had to. Kyron's 5'8"-ish, 200-ish pounds. Like, heavy workload, with Notre Dame, so that he can potentially do that. Got a little hurt at times. Rams understand that you can't lean on a guy that size. So what do? They draft the same fucking running back. The same type of thing, right? Heavy workload at Michigan. One of the best running back seasons of all time in college, at least in terms of PFF grading, for Corum in 22. Gets hurt, comes back, gets 17 and a half carries a game, coming off of an ACL tear late into the previous season. So I get this pick, and I think Corum is in another perfect landing spot. He's going to fit exactly into what Kyron was. I think Kyron's a better pass catcher than Corum, but I also think it's mostly because Michigan doesn't want so on. I think about football at all.
Corum's a better all-around football player.
Yes. Yes. And it's just, how is his backfield going to break down? Kyron should never been an RB1, should never been a first-round pick and start out. That used to always be self to me. Yeah. Undersized A3 picks. I don't care how productive you were. The chances of that happening again is very slim. But it also still means, Blake's not going to take everything away from Kyron. He was very good last year. I'm not taking that away from it at all. He was a very efficient and great back in this Rams team. They're getting older. Stafford, who knows, right? it's a good pick, not a great pick for Corm. You expect a different spot. Brandon Allen did great here. That's where I wanted to go was the Rams, but you'll take the battle of short kings. I'll be honest, I don't know Jordan Winton at all. You guys,
he was a late Texas guy. Played at Texas, a lot of injuries. Got some skill, but he's a guy that is probably a practice squad guy that could work his way up, depending on injuries and what have you. He does have some skill level, but he's definitely a guy that's not going to be relevant early on.
Rams also bought him Boston Scott. Yeah, they're trying to go for the shortest backfield in history.
In history. So then now we have JT, the Ravens. They have Rasheen Ali, Tez Walker, Devin Leary. So they signed a big, huge running back to take over the they brought in Derrick Henry. So what is this the future? Because they signed Derrick Henry a 2-year contract. So what is Rasheen Ali doing here?
So I actually like Rasheen Ali. He had a really nice career at Marshall. Very productive back. I actually think this is a pretty nice landing spot for him. He's a better all-around back than Keith Mitchell. He's a better all-around back than Justin Hill. Now, Keith Mitchell's going to have that home run hit. He's the speedster, so he's still going to be in the mix. I actually like Ali going in the 5th round here. I'm grabbing him in 4th round of drafts everywhere I can. If I don't get Cowing in the 4th round, I've been leaning Ali in the 4th round or Washington if I don't get Malik Washington for the Dolphins. Yeah. Those are like kind of been the 3 guys I've been kind of really eyeing in that round. Now, he's obviously the backup of Derrick Henry. That's not going to change. But he's a guy that I think could beat out those other guys to be the number 2. And if anything happens to Derrick Henry, I could see Ali. They're going to give those other guys, they're going to give Mitchell a shot, but he couldn't stay healthy. Again, he's a smaller, more speedster guy. I think Ali's a better all-around back. So I actually like him a lot as kind of a stash guy as a backup. Yeah. I think he's nice. I just think he's a better all-around back than those other guys. And with no Gus Edwards, I think that really helps him. So he's a little closer to that starting role or that starting number 2 back than I think a lot of people think he is right now. But I think he's going to move up, and I think drafts that take later in the summer, you're going to see him move up in drafts if you hear really good things about him.
He's the second biggest back in the Ravens backfield.
Yeah.
Justice Hill, 5'11", 190-ish. Keith Mitchell is like 5'10", 180. Like, if anything happens to Henry, which the Ravens are praying doesn't, because I like Ali. I think his role definitely is going to be back up to him. But if
and he's
Henry
about 6 foot, 200, 205,
so
he's right in that.
This offense was
5'11", 205. It's Henry or bust for them because it gets after that you're getting into a lot of potential, and you could see them. And they're I think a team that could also bring in a veteran back here.
I think if an injury happens.
Candidate, yeah.
Yeah, and they had to do something to help Zay Flowers on a receiving game, so they brought in Tez Walker. Does that impact here or what?
Here's the thing with Tez Walker. I was starting to lose faith in him early on in the process. He didn't look good at Senior Bowl. He had drops. You can get past drops, but he kind of looked uninterested. He just didn't look that good in the process. And then when he dropped to the 4th round and then he went to the Ravens, he pretty much is off the board. I'm not taking him anywhere. Like, he would literally have to drop to like mid to late 2nd round or mid to late 4th round, and I still might take Howard or Washington over him.
I would,
to be honest. So I am not high on Walker at all. He's really down on my list. He would have to prove a lot to kind of change my mind. And then I think Devin Leary is just a non-factor. I was really surprised they took him. He doesn't seem to fit this offense at all. I was really kind of surprised they took him in the 6th round. Yeah. I don't think he makes this
team. Dan, the Saints, Spencer Rattler, who was could have been the quarterback 1 last year, right? And just decided to go back to school and blow it all, and then Bub Means. So tell me about these Saints.
I kind of like this spot for Rattler.
Yes.
I think you got an unfair rap, right? He was the first kind of hype QB, out of high school, post Mahomes breakout. I think he was he was one of the future quarterbacks on one of the
on the QB1 show.
Yeah. I think he was 18, hothead. He was immature. Like, he got thrusted into this limelight because he made some fun throws goes to Oklahoma, and just sucks, right? And then you bring in arguably the best prospect in Caleb, and sends Andrew Luck, and then he's obviously going to be off that team. I listened to podcasts, people talking about how he was at the Senior Bowl. He was people's favorite, right? Interviews well. He's better than what is advertised, what you see in film. A lot of problems, right? I think he played for 4 years too in college. Like, I don't know how much more room there is, but I would rather take Rattler in the 5th than take Penix or Nix in the 1st. I don't think they're that far apart from each other.
Right? No.
And it was a massive reach on both the Falcons and the Broncos to take these type of players that don't have a lot of upside. He lands behind Derek Carr in New Orleans. I mentioned earlier as a joke more so about if the Falcons get out to a slow start, you can see Cousins come out for Penix because the fans get rowdy. The Saints get off to a slow start. Year 2, Derek Carr, a team that's potentially could compete for that division. You can see teams starting to get calling for Spencer Rattler.
Absolutely.
And Rattler's got upside. He can make every throw. Between the years, I don't know. I got some question marks. But there's an opportunity for him if things go pear-shaped for New Orleans, if he can find himself and he gets to throw to, he's got, Lave's there. You saw his Kamara, Keandre Miller. You have some pieces there for him to get work with. That's about the only positive thing I can say about this because I don't know much about Bub Means. I have him on here, but I know he's
I'll throw 2 cents on Bub Means, 5th round out of Pittsburgh. And really showed out pretty well at the combine. The thing that's a really wide open wide receiver. I mean, you have Chris Olave, and then it's Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, and Bub Means. And I like A.T. Perry a lot, but I think Bub Means is very similar to him. So any deep leagues, real deep leagues, I've been grabbing him in the last round as a flyer if I need a wide receiver, because there is a chance he works his way in there. Again, I have a lot of A.T. Perry from last year. I'm hoping he ends up being their number 3 wide receiver, but Means could definitely work his way in there.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple fast ones here.
Yep.
The Seahawks, A.J. Brown or JT. Tell me all about the only pick they have.
So the Michigan tight end wasn't even their number 1 tight end on their team. He goes, I think he's more of a blocking guy. I think he's a solid player. I don't think he ever becomes fantasy relevant. I just think he's a guy that ends up being kind of what a lot of those guys will, the Will Disleys, who I said I did like, but I think he's, just kind of an in-between guy, middle of the road, got decent draft capital, but for fantasy purposes.
Get some goal line touchdowns, maybe. That's about it.
I just don't see him. I just don't see him doing much. So he's a guy I'm not looking for in fantasy.
Dan Steelers, Roman Wilson.
He moves from a run for his college team to a run for his pro team. Deontay Johnson's gone. It's now just a George Pickens show with Roman Wilson there. I don't care about. And you're the Steelers fan, so I'm on Ron. I don't really care about Calvin Austin that much either. This team is going to lean into the running game, I think, even more so than they were. You're going to have hopefully healthy Pat Freiermuth for a full year. You have the tight end Washington, the super athlete, the super freak athlete out of Georgia from last year. You might see more run from him. I see this as what should be, I think, a 12-set personnel here, multi-tight end. I don't see the path of targets for Wilson to be that relevant, but because he'll start probably week 1, he's draftable. It's not going to be by me. I like him. I don't love him, and I hate this landing spot for him.
He's a late 2nd, early 3rd for me, just because of the situation. I think he's their not number 2 option, but their number 2 wide receiver. I'm just not sold on Van Jefferson coming in there and doing anything. Again, I like Calvin Austin, but he's just not going to end up being there. So Roman Wilson's going to be on the field.
Yeah.
Now, again, target share, how much is questionable, especially year 1. I'm taking him for the upside for the future, that this team kind of gets together and he kind of it has good opportunity. I like the opportunity. I just don't think he's going to see a lot of fantasy action, especially in Europe.
I got a lot of time on Washington, but I'm just kind of last year he kind of let me down when he had the opportunities. Didn't really do too much, so they maybe that's what they said. They'll bring in Roman Wilson and try to spread it out a little bit. So we go to the JT, the Texas case over, and Juwan Jordan.
Yep, I'll go quick because I know we're coming up on 2 hours. Stover is now one of my favorite guys. in this draft as far as tight ends because I love the landing spot. The fact that he got taken in the 4th round, right around where a lot of the other tight ends went, but the fact that he went to Houston with his college quarterback, C.J. Stroud, and Stroud loved him the year before when he was there. Stroud was pushing for them to pick him. I love this spot. He's behind Dalton Schultz. It's going to take a little while, but I think Stover by next year ends up being their tight end 1, and he plays the middle of the field great. He has a feel to like find the open spots in the zone and the pockets across the middle. I really like him. He's a guy that I was taking like late 4th, early 5th, like pre-draft. Now I'm taking him like late 3rd, early 4th if he gets to me because I just really like that landing spot. For me, I'm taking him over Jatavian Sanders. He's my tight end 3 in this class now because I just love this spot for him.
Nice.
And Juwan Jordan, to me, is just a guy. I don't know if he ever really he was a nice college player at Louisville. I don't know if he really ever gets a role here. Now, if Damian Pierce gets traded, they move off of him for some reason. I can see Jordan moving up because there's not a lot behind Mixon. But he's a guy that pretty much in drafts right now is a free agent. I don't see anyone drafting him right now in the top 5 rounds.
Yeah. 6th round, the Tennessee Titans draft. Jaquan Jackson, anything to say about him?
We're out of the Vikings.
Yeah, not much to Jackson. Again, I don't think he's
I'll take my team.
Local boy.
Yeah, let him talk about his guy, J.J. McCarthy.
Local boy from Nazareth. I watched him cry on the sidelines when Mount Carmel beat the shit out of him in the state championship game. But a Catholic League forever. Here we go. But I'm super happy for J.J. McCarthy for everything he's done and where he landed here in the Vikings. I think great spot. Everybody kind of saw this coming. It happened for him. He was happy. The team's happy. Tell me about J.J. McCarthy.
I love this, man. I've been on the McCarthy train. I was sold from when I turned on the film. Look, I understand where a lot of concerns from. Like, we're not even talking about the box score because if you get that far, then you shouldn't be doing this. He's got his struggles. He needs to learn to be a better deep ball thrower. There's going to be growing pains. He lands on the Vikings team that has one of the best coaching staffs, has one of the best playmakers, best collection of playmakers, including the best receiver in football, one of the best tight ends in football. He's got 2 anchored tackles in Darrisaw and O'Neal. It's just, and then he gets Aaron Jones brought in. This guy can hand off too. He doesn't have to be thrusted in week 1. Darnold, look, whatever the coaching staff.
Talk about Darnold.
Whatever the coaching staff, I am bought into this coaching staff, and I think they like what they see from Darnold. He's not the long-term option there. Obviously, you just spend a 10th overall pick on McCarthy, but it allows them not to have to bring along McCarthy so quickly, and it allows them to get acclimated into this Minnesota team, which was a very similar offense to what Michigan ran. And Michigan, also one of the only pro-style teams, under center, understands high leverage situations. I know wins don't matter, but all McCarthy did was win in high school and in college. A lot of titles across the board. I'm not saying that's going to translate, but whatever this coaching staff decided on, they've been on McCarthy for a very long time. I don't necessarily buy all the rumors that they wanted to give up the farm, to go to pick 3 to take May. I think they were always comfortable.
So do I.
With taking McCarthy at 10.
And McCarthy he's not someone who didn't throw a ton. He got pulled at halftime, half the games. He doesn't have a ton of stats, but the NFL looks at what you can do, not what you did. They see the throws he makes. They see his vision. They see what he did on the field, and that's sold him. That's all they needed to do. So.
I saw him at the Combine, and he was in a group with Penix, Joe Milton, Leary, Pratt, and every time he threw, it just looked different.
Yeah.
He just had a little bit of extra zip on it.
61
tight
throw velocity.
Yeah, he had it was you could see it, you could hear it. It was tight. His balls were not floating. His deep balls were on point. I already liked him, but then I saw him at the Combine. I was like, man, I'm really liking what I see out of him, especially when I seen him compared to other guys. He really, really stood out. And then to me, this Vikings landing spot, outside of Caleb going to the Bears, I think is the number 1 landing.
They were the tier 2.
I love this landing
1A,
spot.
1B.
I mean, so I'm in drafts right now where I'm like trying to decide if I move back because I'd rather have McCarthy than Daniel or May. personally, I mean, I'd rather have McCarthy as my second QB. So I just love this. I love the coaching staff. I love the landing spot. So I think it might be a year or two for him, but I really like what they're doing.
I'd like to thank Jagger May for not wanting the number 10 pick and handing JJ McCarthy to me for almost nothing. Thank you very much. I got 2 quarterbacks in the rookie draft, and Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy. So we got it. But anyway, guys, tell me where we're at. We're about 2 hours.
Yeah, we're right at the 2-hour mark here, John. We're under 2 hours if we finish up here. You can find me at JT Orange on X. You can find all my article stuff on DLF, and then hit me up later here on Fantasy and Frames on the Shoot the Gap show.
Dan, thanks for jumping in today.
Thank you. I'm at Beerfield Theory on X. You can find my show at Beerfield Fantasy on YouTube, Spotify, all things streaming, and all things podcasts.
John McGlynn, Dynasty Evaluation. Love the show. Thanks, you guys, for making Dynasty Evaluation what it is. Thanks for Fantasy and Frames for having us today. Great show. Thanks for being here, guys. Cheers. We need to fill up our beers, but we'll do it in a minute. But thanks a lot. Under 2 hours, we did it, guys.